Hello and welcome back to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Volvo 164. Welcome back, and thank you to all the viewers who've recently subscribed, liked or even watched the video. I do appreciate it. For new viewers, please do subscribe if you're into car brochures. This is going to be the channel for you. So back to today's episode, the Volvo 164, a large luxury 6-cylinder 4-door saloon. Now, it came out in the Paris Motor Show in 1968, sold as a 1969 model year, and ran all the way till 1975. It was kind of Volvo's venture into the luxury car segment. It was designed by Jean Wilsgaard, and it took inspiration from the front end from many different cars. I particularly see cars like the Wolseley 699 in the front end. Now, it had big competition. It was going against such cars as the Mercedes-Benz 250 and also cars like the Jaguar XJ6. So it did have tough competition. Today's brochure is an early one. It's a UK brochure dated 1968, so it's kind of like one of the first glimpses of the Volvo 164. So let's have a look at that now. So here we go, the front cover of today's brochure, the Volvo 164. And this is going back to the days when Volvo's numbers actually meant something. So the 6 was because it was a 6-cylinder engine, the 4 because it had 4 doors. They made logical sense at one time. Now, this was the luxury version of a Volvo 140 series. They had to change a lot of the panels to fit that large engine in there. And we've got this rather imposing front grille showing that it's trying to be a luxury car. And to me, it certainly looks impressive. Now, as we turn over the page, this isn't a particularly large brochure, as these early ones often aren't. It gives us a glimpse on the inside, and certainly with these light coloured seats, it does look quite luxurious. Not on Jaguar terms really, but certainly a very nice interior, and you knew it was a solid vehicle. When we open the page, we do get a nice long glimpse of the side of the car, and you can see the Volvo genetics there. If you don't think about that front end, you can certainly see it as any other Volvo. The front end really does stand it out as being something a little different, and overall I do like the design of these. You really don't see many of them around anymore, even though they were very well built and very solid cars at the time. On this side, it does show a little bit of a text, and like I said, there isn't much to this brochure, so we will zoom in on this page and read a bit of this text for you. So it's saying here, a car for those who want to travel fast and comfortably, for those who want the very best in styling and safety. The Volvo 164 with a 3-litre 6-cylinder engine, a joy to drive, a pleasure to travel in, a delight to own. An imposing car, generously equipped, generously spacious, generously comfortable, and of course extremely safe. A completely new design 3-litre 6-cylinder engine, output 145 brake horsepower. New specially designed gearbox, 4-speed, quiet running. It goes on to say, door openings with an angle of 80 degrees, generously dimensioned, individual front seats for a perfect driving position, easy to read and straightforward instrumentation. Well thought out and luxuriously fitted interior. A car with road holding characteristics in a class of its own, designed and built with foresight concerning safety. equipped to make you independent of weather conditions and road surfaces. A pleasure to travel in, a stimulating joy to drive. You know, typical car brochure speak at the time. Throw lots of words in there and hopefully make a little bit of sense. But overall, it's trying to say this is a car that's a little bit more luxurious than what people possibly were used to with a Volvo. In here, it's showing or telling us about an automatic transmission, city traffic, stop and go driving. The automatic transmission version of the Volvo 164 relieves the driver of all gear changing and clutch operation work. It goes on to say about exhaust gas emission control. Yeah, they was even thinking about gas emissions all the way back in 1968, talking about giving it better fuel economy. Of course, not to today's standards, but it's quite nice that at least we're thinking about this. And then it's talking about a variable steering ratio when driving straight ahead without any significant movement of the steering wheel. The steering in a Volvo 164 is exceptionally exact. Towards full lock, however, for example when parking, the steering gear ratio increases gradually to facilitate manoeuvring. Power steering. The Volvo 164 is also available with power steering, this being a combination with the automatic transmission. And I could imagine without power steering and that large engine, that would be quite a difficult car to steer at low speeds, I would imagine. Sunroof, yes. Warm sunny days, a great advantage to being able to let in more light and more air. The Volvo 164 is also available with a sunroof. And then finally it's talking about the brake system. The system is divided up into two separate circuits. Each circuit includes both front wheels and one rear wheels. The handbrake operates on its own brake drums on the rear wheels. The foot brake has a booster which carries out most of the braking work. A relief valve in each of the brake circuits distributes the distribution of braking power so that the rear wheels cannot lock before the front wheels in case of an emergency. And then finally it's saying aristocrat, which seems a little bit of an unusual thing, or am aristocrat. Yeah, it's kind of like a bit weird, but basically it's trying to promote again that this is a luxury car. And then basically it folds back. We get to the back cover. It shows a picture of that nice 3-litre 6-cylinder engine, tells us a bit of specifications. So as usual, we'll have a look at the specifications. And as usual, I'm just going to briefly go through this. If there's anything specific you want to look at, of course you can pause this video at any time. But it's telling us the engine's a Type B30 6-cylinder overhead valve engine with 7-bearing crankshaft, capacity 2.98 litres, 145 brake horsepower for those who are interested. Cooling has obviously got a sealed cooling system, water cooling with pump, etc. And it is got a 12 volt electrical system. The gearbox is 4-speed, fully synchromesh as you would expect on this type of car, but you've also got the option of an automatic. It's telling about the clutch, the single dry plate clutch. It goes on to tell us about the rear axle, the steering system, which is strangely a cam and roller type, front suspension, which is independent suspension with coil springs and rubber mounting control arms, ball joints, double acting hydraulic telescopic shock absorbers, stabilizer. Rear suspension is a rigid rear axle carried in longitudinal rubber mounted support arms and torque rods. It goes on to tell us about the braking system, which we've kind of like mentioned a little bit on the previous page. The wheels and tyres. The tyres, for anyone interested, 165 SR15 tyres. Talks a bit about the comprehensive rust proofing and underbody sealing. Like I say, these cars for the late 60s and 70s really did last well. Of course, the 70s, pretty much every car had rust issues. I think these were better than average, to be honest. It tells about the fuel tank and the lighting equipment, as it talks about, where the lights are, etc. Heating and ventilation system, instrumentation, and miscellaneous equipment. So in miscellaneous equipment, it's talking about 3-point factory installed safety belts on the front seats. Of course, Volvo was the inventor of the seat belt, of course, but very nicely said, we're not going to hold the patent. Everyone can use this patent. I wish everyone was like Volvo, really. It goes on to give a little bit more information about this miscellaneous equipment, things like electric windscreen washers with 2.5 pint water container, etc, etc. Nothing out of the ordinary, things you would expect on a modern car, but possibly things were a little bit nicer on these. You would expect a leather upholstery, although this is a leather vinyl upholstery on this 164 in the early days. Continues to talk about ashtrays, etc, and fitted carpets. Certain models have a sunroof. A little bit of data on the dimensions, which I'm not going to completely go through, but I will move that down slowly. Finally, at the bottom here, it gives us the date code of 68, printed in Sweden. So the Volvo 164, in some ways an unusual car to be showing on this channel, because I kind of like to promote the everyday car, the average car, and this was something a little bit special, I guess. It was in the luxury car segment, but as a child growing up in the 70s and 80s, you still saw lots of these cars around in very average neighbourhoods. Certainly in my neighbourhood, I remember a neighbour having one of these. Expensive to buy new, but of course as they got older they became more affordable, and of course you got a good solid car that did last. If anyone out there has got any memories of the Volvo 64, either your family owning one, or indeed you knowing of any friends or families, or even a road trip you had as a child, I always love hearing those stories. But other than that, please do like and subscribe. It's nice seeing the community growing, and we'll see you very soon. Take care and goodbye.